afternoon, I'm Hippie Swift, and today I proudly present A Touring Bike is Born. In this new series, I'll be taking a second-hand bike and converting it into a fully loaded touring bike for all under £250. The bike I've chosen for this project is a Revolution Cross featuring 24 gears, rear and front pannier lugs, as well as 3 water bottle cage mounts, keeping you hydrated while out on the road. The first thing you want to change when you get a new bike is the brake pads. So off eBay I've got 2 pairs of these, which I got for around £5. I've just installed 4 new brake pads on the front and rear of this bike to aid in my safety and stopping time. Travelling while fully loaded bicycle touring is a bit of an issue, as the weight on the front and the weight on the rear of your bike in the panniers take you downhill, or even on flat it takes you quite a long time to stop. Brake pads are there for your safety, so please pay attention to the wear on them. The second and most important part of your touring bike build will be fitting it to the geometry of your body. In my case, I shall be bringing back the handlebars about 1.5 inches with a shorter bar stem and raising the saddle height by about 3 to even 4 centimeters. To adjust or replace the bar stem, all you need is a 8mm Allen key tool to undo these bolts and the top one, and a 10mm Allen key tool to undo the front bolts connecting the handlebars to the stem itself. Now we've loosened off these 2 side bolts for the actual stem itself, we can proceed in undoing this top bolt with a 6mm Allen key, which holds everything together. Now that I've loosened the bolts from the rear of the stem and the top headset bolt, I'll now go and loosen these ones at the front and take these completely off. This bar stem I've got is 60mm and has a 7-degree incline towards the bars, but myself and my personal preference is to invert these so I have it flat directly onto flat bars. Once you've put your headset on, leave the 2 rear bolts unsecured for now and place the top bolt in, securing it to the front forks. Once the top cap is secured, you can proceed to line it up with the centre line of your bike and tighten up the rear nuts. While tightening these 2 bolts on the rear of your bar stem, it's quite important to do them up one at a time evenly so it doesn't overstress the metal or the threads. When tightening these 4 bolts up to hold your handlebars on, make sure, just like the rear ones on your headset, that you tighten them up evenly with an even gap on top and bottom. To raise and lower the saddle height, you either have an Allen key clamp or a quick release clamp like this. You simply release it. In this instance I'll be going up 3 to 4 centimeters, 4 in this case, and then clamping it up nice and tight so it doesn't come loose. If it is a bit skew width off of your main frame and not quite in line with your front wheel, just undo it a little bit and give it a little check. Once it's done up, you can check it again and repeat the process. While bicycle touring for more than 6 to 10 hours a day, you may suffer injuries in your lower back or even your neck. Getting the correct bike posture and positioning of your saddle and bars is essential. The main features on your touring bike are the racks. Here you can see I've installed a back rack as well as a front lowrider rack. In the United Kingdom you can pick up a second-hand rack like this for between £5 to £10. This is a Z-Fal rack and it has multiple adjustments all over the rack to fit it to road, cyclocross like this, or even full out mountain bikes. The best feature on this rack is the lower bar here. When your panniers get overly full and start interfering in the balance of whatever you put on top of the rear rack, you can always drop your panniers down to this bar here and it'll be a nice flat surface to put a big dry bag on if you want, or like me, a mat bag, padlock and some water bottles. At the front of the bike, I've installed some medicine lowrider racks. I've actually done about 10 to 13,000 miles on this exact same pair, with only a few minor scratches, but no breakages whatsoever. They are of exceptional quality and very heavy duty. The main part with these racks is your bags are lower down to the ground, so the weight's hugging the ground a bit more. Therefore, you can balance a lot better while out on the road. After cycling thousands of miles on my racks, I can safely tell you that you do not need Bontrager or Surly specific touring racks. The only issue that I have with the racks I currently have, they're just not aircraft grade aluminium. That's the only difference I've found, but other than that, they've stood up perfectly fine. I would highly recommend getting some decent racks if you can afford it, but if you're on a budget, stick with something that's under £25. It'll take you further than you've ever been, and you'll have a lovely trip and a bit more money because of it. After a few miles while touring, your bolts on your racks may come loose if you don't put lock thread on them. So I would highly recommend checking these after 10 to 30 miles when you first start your tour, and every couple of 100 miles throughout your tour. Today I'm going to check both the brake and gear cables and see if there's any looseness or stiffness in any of the cable sleeves, and adjust them appropriately. Both rear and front brake sleeves have been checked when I changed the brake pads, which I forgot to mention in my original video. So now I'll go ahead and check the freeness of the gear cables. After a few hundred miles bicycle touring, you may experience your gear cables slackening off a bit from where they've stretched. You can notice this in many ways, but the two most common ways are missing out a rear gear completely and just skipping over a whole gear and going to the hardest gear, or if you go to a lower gear, which is the bigger rear sprockets, then it could just go click 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 for a few seconds. But there's many ways to fix this. On most modern bikes you have these little grub screws which lift up and you can turn to tighten up or slacken off the gear cables entirely directly from there, without undoing any nuts and bolts on the rear of your mech hanger or the front derailleur, say. And these are very handy, although I would suggest that you don't tighten them up or loosen them off more than a quarter of a turn at a time, so you can get the adjustment just right. On the rear mech down here, as you can see, there's another one of these screws. This time it's got bubbles or indents in it, so you can't unscrew it smoothly. It just goes one click at a time type thing, and that is very precise while you're out on the road for emergencies. If you're having problems with the chain jumping off the rear sprocket at all, whether it's towards the wheel or towards the frame off the bigger gears, then these two limiter screws down here may need adjusting quarter to a half a turn maximum. This top limiter screw adjusts the smaller gears, which are the big sprockets, and this bottom screw here adjusts the big gears, which are the smaller sprockets. These help so your chain don't slip off either way if you're on a racing bike or anything like that. As for the front derailleur, you have the top limiter screw for the inside smaller cogs and the bottom limiter screw for the big main chainring. I always like to maintain my own bikes, but not only to save pennies rather than getting it in for a service in the local bike shop, but also when I'm hundreds of miles from anyone, there is no bike shop. So if something goes wrong with my rear mech or my front derailleur or even my gear shifters in general, then no one's about to help me. So knowing how to maintain your bike and fix things, even if it's a bodge, is essential for bicycle touring. As many of us know, it's not always smooth sailing down nicely paved roads while you're bicycle touring. So a set of 32 or even 34mm Marathon Plus tyres or Continental contacts just won't cut it for some situations. So today I've installed a nice set of specialised Trigger cyclocross tyres, which are predominantly made specifically for gravel conditions and off-road grassy and muddy conditions. The grip is quite pronounced, but not too pronounced to slow you down while fully loaded out on the road. As you can see, they're quite nice thick tyres. They're very hard on the top and soft on the walls, which I'm not quite sure about yet, but we'll see what happens. As a 38C, I don't reckon that you'll get many pinch points along the way if you hit a pothole or a curb or something by mistake. The tread is very nice and grippy around the sides and edges, and at the minute they seem to be holding up alright. I've been up and down quite a few hills and they seem fine to me off-road. When I got this bike, it came with a set of Continental gator skins, these ones, and they're very nice, 28mm wide. They're very good for racing bikes or hybrid bikes if you live in the towns and cities and like to get places fast. However, with these, people have complained to me about pinching on potholes and small curves and that type of thing. And that's one of the reasons I got these off-road and specialised trigger tyres, is because of the capability to go more off-road along gravel roads and dirt tracks and that sort of thing. I would highly recommend Continental Contacts or Swalby Marathon Plus tyres at 32mm or 34mm, like I said before, but in this instance, for an off-road bike, this is going to do my needs perfectly. Although I did actually cycle Land's End John O'Groats on a set of specialised all-condition Armadillo tyres at 28mm with a fully loaded Trek Alpha 1.2 racing bike, and at the time I even had these very same front racks on carbon fibre forks, which I recommend you never do, even though I didn't have any problems. As for the panniers I'll be using on this setup, these are by a company called Ridge, and I got them from Halfords here in the United Kingdom for around £25 a pair. They're roughly 23 to 25 litres each pannier, so it's roughly 50 litres altogether. The majority of people either go for Orblebe or Vord waterproof panniers, as they're extremely heavy duty and waterproof. However, when you're first starting out bicycle touring, it's best to go with the cheapest brand possible that are reliable. These panniers are by no means waterproof. They are resistant to a bit of drizzle and light rain for a few minutes, say an hour, 45 minutes at the very maximum. Otherwise they get soaked through and will soak everything inside. To cure this is a simple thing. You get a nice little bivvy bag like this and you put it inside your panniers. It'll keep everything nice and dry, and it organises your stuff with inside the bag. This is a very handy tip with your dry bags. This has saved my backside on many occasions, and even if you don't need your dry bags, always take spare ones. So if you buy food or spare clothes like a woolly jumper if it's cold at night and you end up buying one from a charity shop or a surplus shop, you can always put this on your rear rack. And as I say before, you can winch it down with a bungee cord, bit of string, or even Velcro straps to strap them down, as normally I strap with Velcro my panniers together and attach it to the rear rack with Velcro, same as the front panniers if I have panniers on the front rack, and this is simply to prevent them hopping off. A good tip for you all is you don't actually need front panniers if you run out of money or the panniers break while on tour. If you have a couple of dry bags, you can put them inside one another and squash all of the air out of it completely. Once all the air's out, you should be able to wrap it up nice and tightly, making sure there's as little air in there as possible. And then here, as you can see, I've simply put a bungee strap here. You can quite free and easily place it on your rack, hopefully a bit better than I have here, but I think you get the point with that one. It's quite nice and durable on there, and it's not coming off in any hurry. I hope this video has educated someone into how to buy cheaper panniers and how to waterproof them with a waterproof dry bag. This setup has cost me little under £35 for 3 dry bags and 2 panniers. Till next time, stay safe and hope you find peace.